Hello, everybody. Today's lesson is about how to find and book talent. That's a necessary part of putting on events. You can't really have a major concert without having major talent. So, how do you go about finding that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So, you'll recall that in previous lessons, I have mentioned a service called Polestar Pro. This service costs about $500 a year, and it's what people in our business use. And it's the way we find out information about artists and people that we're interested in booking. And what we would do in this particular instance, if we wanted to book an act, let's just arbitrarily pick Bruno Mars because he seems to be the biggest thing going right now. And we'll just type up here Bruno Mars, hit go, and it'll give us a couple options. I don't think we want Broadway Sings music. Broadway Sings Bruno Mars. I think we want Bruno Mars. So we'll click on that. And the obvious thing that you see is his tour history. First of all, it's where he's been. And down here is where he's going. And you can tell he's over in Australia right now and is about to head shortly in April to Japan and China and Thailand. So he's going to be doing a Pacific area tour for a while, and then he comes back to the United States and goes to Europe after that. He comes back in May, takes a couple of weeks off, goes to Mexico for a show, and then heads to Europe for a while, and then comes back in September and resumes. He takes August off and resumes his tour, his American tour, in September. So he's got a lot going on, but we already know that. But what we're really interested in is over here. Um, we'll take a look here and we'll see that reported shows for him, he's had 102 headline shows reported to Polestar. Average tickets sold 22,072. Average gross 2,232,000. Now that's going up. We know that because we have seen that his shows are among the most popular shows there are. So that's going up and up and up. But what we really want to look at for our purposes is first thing we want to look at is down here where it says agency, because this is where we're going to make an offer. And we see that his agent is John Marks with the William Morris Endeavor Agency. And here is his phone number. And so we can call him if we want to, or we can send him an email. We can just click on WME and it'll eventually change, maybe, if I'm connected to the internet. And we get to this page, which has all of the William Morris people on it. Here's William Morris staff. And if you go down the list here, we're looking for, I believe we were looking for John Marks. This is his email address. So he'll be easy to email when we get ready to send him an email about Bruno Mars and see where we can book him. But that's not what we're going to do right now. We're not going to book Bruno Mars because we can't afford it. And besides that, I've never booked him. So we're going to do something that I have done before. I should also point out here that when you look at average gross, as we've mentioned before, this is gross ticket sales and not necessarily the offer that you would give the artist. But I would guess that to give the artist a decent offer, you'd probably have to start at least a half a million, probably more, with some points on the back end, and we'll talk about how that works. So the one I'm going to talk about today is one that we did here on campus at Delta State a couple of years ago that a couple of you probably attended. And this particular one we did with in conjunction with Grammy Museum Mississippi, and it was before Grammy Museum opened. We did a concert at the stadium with the band Perry. And how did we go about? What would the process be towards booking that? Well, I had done them before, so I knew about what they cost, and I had done them, and I'd paid $100,000 for them to do them. at a show in Jackson one time. So what we did this time was we just sort of started with looking for the date. And so I looked up their agent, who actually already knew their agent because I had done them before, and they at that time were with William Morris Endeavor, and their agent was a lady named Becky Gardenhire, who I had done quite a bit of business with. So here's the way it started. Um, I wrote this letter to her, and it said, the Mississippi Grammy Museum is looking for a mutually acceptable date. That obviously is a date that works for both of us. And I put the possible venues there. And then anytime I'm dealing with anything, because I have a deltastate.edu email address, I always put that it's not a college sponsored event, because that is the number one place that they decide they want to really gouge you for the money, because they know they can do that. They know they can gouge colleges and college students and make a bunch of money, and that they're going to pay more than they normally would. So I always put that in there so they'll understand that I am, while I work for college, I am not working for the college on this particular event. So she called me back very shortly after that, and we talked about dates. And we settled on one, and we settled on one between. After I talked to her, I went back to the folks at Grammy Museum, and we settled on Thursday, April the 9th, and this year was 2014. So here's what comes next. I have please consider our offer of $100,000 flat, and I'll talk about the types of shows in just a minute. In McCool Stadium on campus, and by a semi-private event, it means that there will be tickets sold, but it will also be a whole lot of free sponsor tickets going out. So don't expect a lot of money on the back end, because the whole idea uh, is to have a show for sponsors and large donors, and then also be able to allow the general public to come in. And once again, I put in here, this isn't a university event, to make sure that they completely understood that. So then, when I didn't hear back from them immediately, after a couple of weeks, let's see, this offer was on September the 3rd. On September the 16th, I had sent them another email saying, have y'all had an opportunity to consider this? And I got this email back from Becky that said, thanks for checking in. Um, can we get some more money? And you can tell that they're looking, if you look right down here, they have offers much higher, at least in the 150,000 range. So I knew I wasn't going 150,000, and she knew it too. But this is the game you play. This is called negotiating, and she wanted more money. So what I did, of course, was I went to my people and said, they're trying to get more money. Do you think we can raise it a little bit? And we decided that we could raise it $110,000, or we could raise it to $110,000. So I sent Becky another letter back, um, telling her that, and making it clear that it's not going to go any higher. So that's pretty much it, and that's the way it works. And I've also considered, put at the bottom, I hope management will give serious consideration to our offer and the project we represent. So then the next thing that happened, and this is usually a pretty good sign that you might be getting the show, is that you'll get a letter that looks like this, where it refers to your pending offer, but it also asks you about 1,000,000 questions, and you have to answer each one of these questions individually. You can't just say yeah, no, yeah. You have to get down and answer each one of them and answer it. And you can see what the requirements are going to be. It's 2 pages long, and you can see all of this stuff. And in yellow down there, they really want to know who's going to be signing the contract, because that's the person that's going to be responsible for the money. So I filled out the part that I could fill out, and I sent the rest to my people with the money and let them fill out the part that they could fill out. So we sent it all back in, and then we got this on November the 3rd. See, that's how long it took. It took from the 1st of September until the 1st of November to book a show in April, and uh, it said, I have confirmation, and they always put that in capitals because that's a really big deal. And then, of course, if you look under it, it said a couple of quick questions, and they need these so they can put out the contract. MG, of course, stands for meet and greet. And it goes on to point out that they have a specific protocol, and in fact, they had a very specific protocol. And they want the announce on sale dates, and usually they're different dates. Usually, you announce it about a week before you actually put the tickets on sale. You announce it, you promote it, and so that people, as soon as tickets go on sale, people buy them. So the next thing that happens is you get a contract, and the contract. This is just a little part of it right here, and particularly because I wanted to just show you down here where it says compensation, $110,000 flat guarantee. Now, the reason I showed you that is because there are several types of deals, and flat guarantee is probably one of the least used. And so let's get on with those. Flat guarantee obviously is what it is. It means that you're going to get this much money, no more, no less. So that's what obviously what a flat guarantee is. And I just showed you what that looks like on a contract. The next one is a percentage, and that means, of course, that the band gets a certain percentage of the ticket sales, and that would look a lot like this one right here. This is from a show I did a few years back at Hal and Mal's in Jackson with Alabama Shakes. And if you look down here under terms, the terms are zero guarantee paid to artists, but 60% of gross box office receipts paid to artists after support. Support, of course, means opening acts. And let's see, we wound up doing 6,200 people on that show. So it was pretty substantial. If you want to do the numbers on that at $20 a ticket, that's, let's see, what is that? 120 something thousand, and the band took 60% of it. Not a bad deal. So that is the percent. Okay, then we have the guarantee plus percentage. These are usually done at smaller venues like nightclubs and that sort of thing, where the band gets a guarantee. We'll guarantee you $500 plus 50% of the door, or something along those lines. Actually, it would probably be a lower guarantee for that, maybe $100 plus 80% of the door. Could be any number of different things. A guarantee versus percentage would mean we'll give you $500 or 80% of the door, whichever is larger. Per ticket is a rare type of thing that you do get occasionally. We'll give you $10 for every $15 ticket that's sold, or whatever. Tickets could be different prices. There'd be a lot of reasons to do a per ticket show, but you don't see it very often. But the biggest and the most common and the most complicated, of course, is the back end deal, sometimes called the plus deal. And what this means is that there is a guarantee up front. Uh, there's always a guarantee up front. But after that guarantee is reached in terms of ticket sales, then the promoter has the opportunity to cover all of his expenses. And then any money that's left over on the back end is split between the band and the promoter, with the band getting the bulk of it and the promoter getting the minimum of it. It's usually 85-15. These days it might even be 90-10. The band gets most of it. So what does that look like on paper? Here's another one that I did a few years ago, also at Hal and Mal's with the drive-by truckers. And you can see right here, terms, $10,000 guarantee paid to artists, plus 85% of gross box office receipts paid to artists after all approved and documented expenses. and they have to do that. They have to approve all of the expenses, including a promoter profit of 15% of all approved expenses. I built that in for me so I could make a little bit of money out of the deal, including the artist fee. So that means out of all of the expenses, including the artist fee, you take 15% out, and that goes as a promoter profit. That was for me. And then after that point, you would get to what the break point would look like. So using our concert budget sheet, let's take a look at how that might look. Um, Band event, DBT, the Drive-By Truckers. Date is irrelevant. We'll just say today for the heck of it. What is to, well, about 3/21, about that. That's close enough. Um, and then it has income. Let's say total sales. Let's say that we did 3,000 tickets at $20 a ticket. That is what, $60,000. Um, and you can, of course, let's just say that we sold all of them in advance and we didn't do any walk-ups. And let's say that we didn't do any refunds, but we do have to take sales tax into consideration. In Mississippi, the sales tax on shows is actually 3%. So hang on a second and let's do some numbers. Okay, so we had $60,000, and we divide that by 1.03, and that gives us 58,000 is what we would come up with after the sales tax. Let's see what that's going to be. If we do that, $60,000, that means we paid $1,747.57 in sales tax. So we're going to put minus 1747, and what did I say, 57 cents? Yes, 57 cents. Um, so that gets us down to $58,000. And then our ticketing costs, let's just say that it cost us um, $1,100 for ticketing, and we once again do minus $1,100. Just made that number up, by the way. So that means that our total income from sales, from ticket sales, was $57,000. Now, our artist guarantee in this instance was 10 grand. Um, so that would be number one expense. The ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, let's just say, if you're not familiar with those are, of course, the PROs that we always have to pay for almost everything that we do. So let's just say that that was $600. And then let's talk about the venue. Let's say venue rental. In this particular instance, it didn't cost me anything to rent the venue, obviously, because I own the venue. But if I could have, let's just say $1,000 venue rental. Production was probably about $3,500, which is pretty low for this kind of a show. The stage probably cost me another $1,500. Not a real big stage. I didn't have to pay for power. I paid an electrician $150 to be there. The support acts, I think I had about two different support acts, and I think I paid them $200 a piece. So we'll just say that support was $400 on that show. Um, I didn't have the fire department. I didn't have to provide any backline. If you don't know what backline is, of course, backline is basically drums and guitar amps and any kind of instrument things that bands would normally have on stage, but that they don't carry with them, and that is frequently provided by the venue or the promoter. Let's see, staffing, ticket takers. Let's see, I didn't really have any staffing on that. I did have loaders. I had 5 loaders at $150. That's $750. Didn't have a rigger. Didn't use any union guys. I had some other stage hands. I had, I think, 3 at $150 a piece. That's another $450. ticket sellers. I had two at $100. I'm just kind of making up some of these numbers. I don't remember what I had. And I can guarantee you that I didn't sell all of those tickets either. This was not a $60,000 show. The same thing for ticket takers, ushers. Let's see. I didn't have any hotel expenses. I had a EMT on site for $150. Had a bunch of cops. Cops go in my world for usually about $25 an hour, and I had to have a bunch of them, and I don't remember what it was, but I'm going to say that my security expenses on this were somewhere around in the $4,000 range. Didn't have any ticker. Hospitality would have been probably another 500. Let's just make it $600 because it was probably that much. Advertising, relatively inexpensive for me at this time. I used Clarion Ledger. AdMat from artist. A lot of shows make you buy advertising material from the artist. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to pay for any permits. I didn't do any of this other stuff. Most of this other stuff that I had, I did have to rent some barricades. I'm going to guess that that was another $400. Cleanup was probably $500. It's hard to clean up a street. So if you'll take a look down here, this kind of automatically fills in the blanks. The total expenses for the show were $24,800, which means that the promoter profit was 15% of that. So I would have made $3,720 off of it, which is added back into the expenses if you'll look right here, so that the gross overall total expenses were $28,520. So the money left over after the expenses was about $28,000. So out of that, as you saw in the contract, the band would receive 85% of that. So their 85% of $28,000 is $24,337. That's what the band would have received. Now, so the amount owed to the artist, that percentage plus their original $10,000 means that they made $34,337 and change. Now, if we assume that I had paid them a deposit of half of it, which would have been $5,000, you'll notice that I owe them right now at this moment, after the show, $29,337. It also carries on here that my percentage of the profits, the 85% of what was left over after expenses, was $4,294, and that added back to my original 15% promoter profit was $8,014. So the band made about 35,000. I made about 8,000. Now let's assume for a minute that we had other income, and I really did not on this show. But let's just assume for a minute. Well, it did. I had a lot of concessions that we sold for it, but I didn't make it personally. But let's just say that we did. Parking, we didn't charge anybody for parking, so that's a zero. Merchandise. Might have made a couple $100 of, let's just say $300 off of the band's merchandise. I didn't sell anything myself, but let's say at Hal and Mal's, the concessions, we probably made somewhere in the neighborhood of, let's just say $22,000 worth of liquor and beverages that we sold. So if you'll take a look at that, our other income is $22,300, and so for me, or the promoter, or Hal and Mal's, or whoever it happened to be, it would have been a $30,000 profit for the show. Does that make sense? That's the way this form is, and I put this form, I revised it a little bit from the one I gave you last week, and I put it on under files, and all of the formulas are right, and everything fills out itself. So all you have to do is type in the expenses. You just have to remember up here at the top when you do sales tax and ticketing costs and things to make those negative figures. Other than that, everything else does itself. So that's what it would look like if you were to fill out a concert budget form for a plus or a back end deal. That's what a back end deal looks like. I know that's a little confusing, but if you sit down and think about it, and if you go through this and watch it again, then you'll figure it out.